Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about why the Burning Crusade was boring. I want to say real quick that I did make another video similar to this. It was more of an open-ended commentary style. I was leveling an enhancement shaman while I did it. I'm going to link that one down below. It's since unlisted just because I didn't want to drop two videos about it and talked a little bit too much, repeated myself just a little bit too much. And I apologize real quick. My dog is running around in the background. She's a cute little Boston Terrier, so you hear her little feet clacking on the tile. I do apologize, but just know that she's very adorable. Okay, now starting off, we have Illidan with the people crying emoji. I thought that this was symbolic for TBC. It's also symbolic for being in Black Temple for week 9 and getting the same loot once again. You're getting that tank helmet, or you're getting the bulwark, and you're not getting that glaive, whatever it may be. That was my Black Temple experience. We saw like the same loot every single week. All right, so there was little to no content at 70. I felt this was true the entire expansion, but the bulk of content to do at 70 was in the beginning of the expansion, which did not bode well for the entire expansion. We'll start off with reputations. Reputations were like a big thing going into TBC. Everyone was talking about how you should min-max your reputations. Human is going to be such a good racial in TBC just because of how many reputations there are. All of the reputations I needed for recipes, for pre-bis, for whatever it may have been, all the dungeon reps, all of that stuff, I got exalted with that within the first month. And now, of course, you can obviously say, well, hey, there was the Skyguard, there was the Ogre reputation, sure, but I'm going to go on a limb and say, like, the average player wasn't doing those. Like, the average player wasn't doing those because if they didn't yield, like, a base benefit or, like, a recipe benefit. I certainly wasn't. About a month in, and I mean, even in then, like, the stuff that I had to farm for, I didn't include this in my slide, but this is also accurate for me. It's like the stuff that I had to farm for, like, the recipes. I also got that within like the first week or two of enchanting. The only one that I never got, which I don't think was very easily farmable, it was like the plus resistance to cape or something like that. The best way to farm it was in Area 52 off those like experiment looking guys. But yeah, that was the only one I didn't get. And yeah, like little to no content to run to dungeons, reason to run dungeons, and that's also true. As soon as you got your badges and as soon as you got your reputations, there was really no reason to return to dungeons. I mean, I would do it every now and then if like someone still needed this. Like the only dungeon I continued to run throughout pretty much the entire expansion was heroic slave pens, and that's just because it was so quick, it was so easy, and the trinket was so good for people making alts or whatever that it was just such an easy one to do. The skip was easy, it was fun, I didn't mind it, but that was about it. Obviously, you would keep doing dungeons for attunements, but that's not really like the content dies after you do the attunements. Like I don't remember anyone, being like, "Hey, let's go do heroic Arcatraz." Like, yeah, I'm down, dude. Just kidding. Dungeon difficulty was also really overblown. I remember people being like, "Oh, heroic dungeons, those are really, really hard." And I'm gonna say there was two that were actually difficult at the beginning of TBC, and that was actually heroic Arcatraz. Some of those mobs in the end of that dungeon hit like a fucking truck, and they were so compact in those little rooms. And second was heroic blood furnace. And heroic blood furnace actually was only hard because of the gauntlet. Excuse me, I have to let my dog out real quick. But these dungeon difficulties were very overblown. People were like, "Oh, it's gonna be really hard." If you don't remember how hard the dungeon content was in TBC, it's such a huge step up. It wasn't. It really wasn't. You're gonna have to constantly CC. You definitely don't have to. I mean, certainly it helps. Like in heroic slave pen, some of those pulls are made a lot easier if you do hex or not hex. Sorry, excuse me. If you do CC. Lastly, raids. I know it's probably gonna drive people crazy. I'm going bottom to top, but raids not interesting or too easy. I felt like that was the story of the entire expansion. Karazhan was very easy. I will say that pre-nerf Nightbane was a very fun fight. But after doing it 2 or 3 times, as someone who did not play original TBC, it was very boring. It was just like, okay, this is it. Like, all right, yeah, let's go do So anyways, to CTK. Gruul and Mag were not very interesting. Um, Gruul was an easy one to continue to run all expansion though, but it just had such good gear. Um, you had the Mage Blade for alts, then you also had the Healing Trinket, which people needed still. And then you had the, obviously, the ST. But so Raid's not interesting. As a CTK, I didn't find interesting. Um, the run back for Kael'thas after wiping on it 69 times to kill it was brutal. His fight was not very interesting in my opinion at all. The long build up, the long phases, the RP, all of that just felt more time consuming and gimmicky than actual fun. Fights that typically have like long build ups like that and take a long time to come back to. Like I love Nax, I love KT, but wiping on KT and having to do that little gauntlet before is like one of the worst feelings in the world. Typically, vanilla Nax because you weren't wiping too much in Wrath. Um, Yeah, it was definitely some of the worst. As a CTK, I just didn't find it very interesting. Like when that phase was over, I was very content. Mount Hyjal, very boring raid. Very, very, very bored of that quickly. Um, Black Temple, also, it's Black Temple. It's a fun raid. There were some fun fights in there. I really think that Mother Shiraz is very fun. Council's very fun because there's a lot going on. Illidan is, Illidan's, do the tanks know what they're doing? Are the tanks going to mess up the flames? Because you'd go into a pug or GDKP, you'd get to there and it'd be like, all right, we're wiping because the tank does not know what he's doing. And that was just the story of BT. That was, it was like, okay, does the tank know what he's doing or not? But yeah, again, like Mother Shiraz, those fights, like, weren't super fun. I mean, as soon as you got it down, you literally would just kind of sit there and still do whatever you did. But it is what it is. It was an okay fight. But Sunwell also, I felt, was, excuse me, I'm yawning because I'm thinking about TBC. I woke up very early. Sunwell also not very interesting. Someone once described Sunwell to me as the hardest earned leveling gear, and I agree with that. I think they kind of screwed the pooch by announcing Wrath right before Sunwell. I think they killed a lot of people's incentive, and you also have to consider that like Sunwell gear doesn't carry very hard into Wrath, so there wasn't a massive incentive to do it compared to Nax 40 to TBC, but the gear carried over quite well. Yeah, I mean, again, Sunwell, not very interesting. Sunwell was like really when you could start understanding the meta. Like Muru became a snoozer once you understood that the more warlocks you had, the easier it became. Raid group buff meta, arguably worse than World of Buffs. I wholeheartedly agree with this. Note real quick is that I actually really like World of Buffs. I still play Classic Era, and I get fully World Buffed every week in that. When I can, obviously, the MF isn't up every week. Chrono Boons, I really feel like expelled any issues with World Buffs. But needing multiple shamans and niche classes that don't perform well, making them not tantalizing to play, making them a headache to recruit is a natural nightmare. That was the worst part of TBC. With World Buffs, you would lose World Buffs for a raid night. Like, say it's a bad Skitter Pack pull. There's a 99% chance you'd have them back for the next raid. I put 99% because I don't know everyone's raid schedule. You could raid the next night, and there could not be a rend the next night. You know what I mean? Something like that. But there is a very high chance that you're going to have all your World Buffs back the next day. Lose your Enhanced Shaman, though. You're not going to have one for the next raid. Unless you're a super, super good guild who, has people just begging to join. You're not, you're week 1 clearing, your speed running week 2. Just super incredible guilds probably don't have that issue. But the average guild definitely will not have an Enhanced Shaman by the next raid. And my source is that I recruited on Benediction for all of TBC. So I can tell you right now that was it was not the case to get one back very quickly. But what I forgot to put in here that I want to say is that a lot of these classes, like Shadow Priest, and in these classes that were deemed to be specs in vanilla, which they were, don't sure they have a spot in a raid group now. You're seeing obviously the Boomkin, the Shadow Priest, Enhanced Shaman, which is the meme spec back then, Arms. All of these classes have a spot in the guild in a rotation in a raid, but they don't do a high DPS output, and their rotations aren't very fun. I mean, I've heard Shadow Priest is actually quite fun, so we'll say Shadow Priest. We'll keep Shadow Priest that. But Boomkin, not very fun. So it's not like they're very tantalizing for people to play again, like I said. But you know what I mean? It's not like, hey, dude, play Boomkin. You know, the rotation's very fun. You're not going to do a ton of DPS, but like the rotation's very fun. It's like, hey, dude, come play Boomkin. You're not really ever going to be in the top 10. But you know what? You get a boring rotation too. Like, it's not tantalizing. Like, there's a reason why there was such a scarcity of these classes. Lastly, well, I think I show a few more slides, but death of the open world. Vanilla is heavily dependent on the open world, which is like, it makes it feel alive. You know, you're farming Jujus in Winter Spring to farming enchant crystals and Guru to world buffs. There are plenty of reasons to keep going into the open world. In TBC, there's none outside of leveling. Obviously, if you're doing dailies or you're doing dungeons in the first few weeks, you still have that reason. But again, that dies very quickly, whereas in Vanilla, it stays relevant the entire expansion. You're doing that the entire expansion. Jujus are helpful the entire expansion. You're doing BW Ball Phase 6, go get a Juju. You know, throw it on during Firemon. Throw it on during whatever it may be. It's going to help. Maybe you're doing an MC speedrun, whatever. You just pop one on. You probably don't even need fire resist anyways, but help the healers out, whatever it may be, right? There's always a reason to go back there. There's world buffs to keep it alive, stuff like that. Like, just always a reason to go all around the world, and that's so cool. It keeps the world alive. Is that it? Yeah. I guess that is it. I guess that was the last slide. Yeah, so that's why I think TBC is bad. I know a lot of people had complaints about TBC, PvP. I never really PvP'd in TBC, so I don't want to talk about that just because I'm not knowledgeable about it. But I really don't think TBC is a good expansion. I think it's the weakest link of the original three. I think that's evident just on private servers. But I'm not advocating playing private servers, by the way. Wink, wink. But yeah, I don't think TBC is very good. I'm going to stop myself from rambling too much here. Maybe go back to this slide, talk a little bit about it. But I really think, like, I picked this picture of Shatrath because as soon as you finished, getting free vis, whatever it may be, that's pretty much all you're doing. You're like just sitting in Shatrath, like, all right, I'll log in, maybe spam or recruit a message, maybe look to see if anyone needs any enchanting. That was it. Like, that was very, very, very simple. So anyways, TBC, pretty boring. Would not play again. Anyways, take care, y'all. I do stream on Twitch sometimes. My Twitch is linked below. I'm going to be making another video very soon about Loot Council and why I think it's the best loot system. So anyways, take care.